Derick Giwner live at the DRF headquarters here, and we've brought in remotely Jay Bergman to talk about the Breeders' Crown. We've picked out a few select races that I think will be some of the more difficult ones on the card, and Jay's going to help us handicap them.
I hope so.
With any luck. We're going to start in race number 3. There are 12 Breeders' Crown races on the card, 3 $40,000 guaranteed pick 4s, a jackpot pick 5 of sorts. It's a mandatory payout with a $20,000 carryover. All the action is going to be on Harness Live. We start in race 3. The 2-year-old filly Pace. They're going for $600,000 is on the line here. And we have a situation here where we have quite a few options. Warrior You Butte is the morning line favorite, coming off a 4th place finish behind Tall Drink Hanover. Saint Somewhere is the morning line favorite. Oh, no, wait, Warrior You Butte, Saint Somewhere is the second choice. Excuse me. Well, what do you see this, how do you see this race playing out at all, Jay?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You had to win a race to get a favorable draw. Fortunately, that worked out for Warrior You Butte, who didn't win, but managed to get a favorable draw nonetheless. I think when you look at the 2 strongest horses in the race, they're lining up next to each other, Tall Drink Hanover, Warrior You Butte. And it's just a question of, you know, what value you take on last week's elimination. You know, I thought Warrior You put in a monster effort in 4th from the 8 hole. But at the same time, I thought Tall Drink Hanover did something that, like, you know, she was passed on the backstretch, and you know, it looked to me like the race was over with one quick move, but the filly dug in and fought on. And, you know, I think one thing I've learned over time, I prefer a filly that digs in to a filly with high speed. I think Warrior You Butte has probably more extreme speed than Tall Drink, but I like the horse that has the guts.
I think it's worth a look to take a second look at that particular race. We're going to call up the replay here where Warrior You Butte basically comes at Tall Drink Hanover, and you see Warrior You Butte's on the outside now with Derick Giwner, and you know, kind of rushing up to Tall Drink Hanover, and these two are going to definitely duke it out, Jay.
You know, I mean, that Yannick would have such confidence in the filly is no surprise, coming off a world record mile at the Red Mile. And, you know, he actually told Gabe Pruitt before the race that he would see him in the winner's circle again. It didn't turn out that way, but I think that was the enormous confidence he had in the filly. You know, the other side of that is I think he knows she's more of a one-run type, and I think, you know, maybe this week with the draw, he has that ability to put in the one run.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then you see Tall Drink Hanover here digging in the stretch to hold off Zero Tolerance, who had a really nice trip sitting behind. And Tall Drink Hanover clearly has that one held at bay. You know, for me, when I looked at this race, I felt like it was pretty wide open. There are horses in here that could certainly step up. Even Beauty on the Beach is getting a driver change. Tim Tetrick, a good spot along the inside. I think you were on that horse last week. Queen of the Pride had a little bit of trouble. Looked like she couldn't quite keep it all together and lost it for a little bit, but seems to have some sort of talent. Zero Tolerance, you can't fault that effort. Ultimately, I just kept coming back to the fact that Warrior You Butte is the fastest horse in the race.
You know, like I said, we're at a crossroads here about speed versus you know, guts. And, you know, you just gave a minor, like, well, she held off Zero Tolerance as well. Yeah, exactly. She held off Zero Tolerance, and Zero Tolerance couldn't have had a better trip. You know, if they had asked her in advance, what trip do you like? I'd like to sit behind her after she's got to go all out to 3/4. I just sit there and I go by her, and she didn't go by her, and with every shot to go by her. So that's my call. I mean, you know, I like to say it's wide open. I think she's really, really good.
Listen, I can't deny the fact that Tall Drink Hanover is a really good horse, and I certainly, you know, would use her on my tickets in the pick 4. Certainly, I went with Warrior You Butte, and we're going to move on to race number 4. It's the 2-year-old Colt Trot, also $600,000 on the line. The morning line favorite here is 2-1 with Chimpanzee, and we're going to take a look at how Chimpanzee came out with the victory last week in the elimination. It was a pretty big mile, Jay.
I think it was extraordinary. I think, you know, there was a big test for Chimpanzee. You know, coming off the New York Sires Stakes circuit, there's always a question of, you know, what have you faced? And you're beating ordinary horses at times in their half-mile tracks. and now you step up to the big time and you got to go a bigger track. And obviously, nothing given last week. The horse drew post 8. But, Brian Sears seems like he knows how to navigate. And when he's got the goods, he doesn't seem to get too flustered. I mean, he just methodically does what he has to do, has confidence in the horse. And I think that's a great thing with a 2-year-old trotter when you have that kind of ultimate confidence that you can take air and not really worry about it.
I mean, obviously, on paper at least, Green Manalishi looks like the main threat as far as who's fastest. But do you think it turns out with post position number 8 that Green Manalishi is the horse that's could give him the most trouble?
I think so. I certainly think again we're at that crossroads of uncoupled entries and likely to work with each other if they can. But I kind of think that Green Manalishi has enough talent to be on the front end, and perhaps Chimpanzee decides that he wants to be near there as well, and the two of them set up shop running 1-2 around the track. So I could certainly see that. I mean, after the race, I spoke to Marcus Melander about the two of them. It's interesting. He kind of thinks that Green Manalishi is going to be the better 3-year-old, but he kind of believes that when it comes to this year, Chimpanzee just may be the better horse. Of course, Green Manalishi has had some bruises in one of them, and I kind of can't come up with an excuse as to why he got beat.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the rest of the field, is there any long shots in here you feel like can get into the mix? Maybe hit the board, hit the number, exacta, trifecta.
Well, I think Chin Chin, Hall, and Prospect Hill. I mean, Prospect Hill, last week again we had the situation where you didn't have to be in the top 3 or even win the race to make the final. So, Prospect Hill didn't have to do very much last week. I think, Andy Miller likely to get a little bit more involved from the inside post this week and with the money on the line.
Okay, let's move on to race number 8. It's another for the 2-year-olds. This one's for the Colts on the pace. $600,000 once again on the line in this Breeders' Crown race. And for me, I mean, top to bottom, I mean, I see 7, maybe 8 horses that can win this race.
We're on the same page there. When horses win off of trips, you can't say that they're great. You could say that they get the trips. When they get the trips, they win. When they don't get the trips, they lose. And I think, that's what we have a collection of here. It's a lot of very fast horses. I mean, the Red Mile showed a lot of sub 150 speed, but not that of the dominant kind. So I think you're right on the map, right on the money here.
Looking at this as a wide open race, I want to take a look at a video from last week, and there's a couple of things I want to look at here, but the first thing is the horse at the back, the 6 horse who gets run into by the 3, that's Love Me Some Lou, completely taken out of the race, had to make up a good 10 lengths and still made the final, Jay.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of a problem with the Cancelleri Callahan horses that they've all showed up to look like they're really, really good, and somehow it just never seems to happen in the big races. I mean, they're well-bred horses and they're well-trained horses, and even at times they're well-driven horses. But I don't know, for some reason it just doesn't seem to happen in the big races for them.
And we're going to watch here as they come off the turn, and that's Proof, who's going to sweep the field from last. What do you think of this effort from Proof, who's the 5 here?
I think he's a very, very solid horse. Obviously, with the trip, he's a very good horse. Wins the Pennsylvania Star Stakes final, draws the rail here, and like you said, with those credentials, and you would think he's an overwhelming choice to win this race. But the rail's no guarantee of a great trip. It's just the inside spot to start with, and I think they're going to mix it up here.
How about No Mas Amor? I mean, this horse came in the Red Mile and went that big mile out of nowhere at 114-1. Comes back the following time at the Breeders' Crown in the elimination and does it again, though courtesy of Air Force Hanover, who set up those big fractions for him.
Well, courtesy, yes, but and he didn't have to leave the rail, which was obviously a benefit to him. But at the same time, they were going fast enough, and he was going faster. So I believe he's a real horse. Again, we're at a point there with 2 races that he's won where he didn't have to do a whole lot of the heavy lifting in the first 3 quarters, and he was there to pick up the pieces. But that doesn't mean he can't do it again. So
where did you end up going in this race? Which horse are you putting your finger on?
Well, I'm putting my finger on Blood Money, the 9 horse, and I mean, this is Yannick's with the horse. Tactor, last Breeders' Crown, I believe that he'll be training horses, and this is a well-bred horse. I'm really a little partial to the Sweet Lou's as we get to the end of the season because my mind does remember just how good Sweet Lou was at the end of his 2-year-old season, a Breeders' Crown winner at 2. And this horse just seems to be. I thought he was very good last week. I think he's been very good all the way through. I think he's a price, and I think he's a contender. And and Yannick finds ways to overcome the outside.
Listen, I think that you can overcome the outside at this track if you have the right horse and you get the right setup. It's just a matter of being close enough to the lead. You're not going to close from 9th, but as long as you can get away 4th, 5th, get up close enough where you can make that late move, you got a shot.
Absolutely, and like I said, in this field here, I think leaving isn't a bad idea here. And some of these horses aren't going to want to be on the lead, and I do believe Blood Money has the pedigree and certainly the form. I mean, the horse has been in the money in all 10 of his starts this year, so no reason to believe he can't be one of these.
Any thoughts on the horse I end up picking first, which is Air Force Hanover, who went that big mile on the engine last time? Certainly been good, basically every single week. Some strong efforts, as fast as any of them. Getting a new driver now, Tim Tetrick, as David Miller opts off. Maybe the fact that David Miller opting off also increases the price a little bit too.
Yeah, but it also adds that question mark, which is why did David Miller get off? I mean, the other horse has the rail, obviously, but still, I think from my discussions with Brian Brown, Air Force is not the most manageable horse and the easiest horse to drive, and maybe that's another one of the reasons why Miller's chose a horse that's a little bit more versatile and proof.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Now we're going to move on to race number 11. It's the 3-year-old filly trot. This was actually your choice of the races to look at. I gave you the choice of one, and you went with this one, and why not? You got Atlanta, Phaetosive, Manchego, and Plunge Blue Chip. They've been duking it out all year.
Well, they've never been duking it out in one race together, and that's pretty much what we've been hoping for, to get a showdown. Unfortunately, like everything else, you can't always get all the horses to show up at their best at the same time. And I think, unfortunately, from what we've seen of Manchego in the last few weeks, she does not look right now to be at her best, and she didn't get any assistance from the outside draw. But, as we discussed last night, Derek, when we saw the driver changes, one George Brennan coming out of Yonkers for a Saturday night, a rare out of Yonkers Saturday night appearance, and he'll be driving Phaetosive, which is a monumental driver change.
No, listen, there's no doubt about that. Is there any doubt in your mind with George Brennan driving that Phaetosive goes to or at least tries to leave, makes some sort of forward attempt in this race?
There's no doubt, but I'm a little fearful of that, because it's like, with pacers blasting out of the gate, the first time you drive them, they're a little safer. They won't go off their feet. I mean, this is the first time he's sitting behind the horse. He obviously doesn't want to make a mistake, and certainly not knowing a horse and not knowing just how quick a horse could leave puts him a little bit of disadvantage of the whole blast scenario. And certainly anyone who's watched Atlanta this year, just in the Hambletonian, she was, before the gate opened in the Hambletonian, she was on the lead. So this is an extremely quick horse off the gate. That doesn't mean, George wouldn't want to leave, but I think he's going to be leaving for a spot behind Atlanta rather than in front of her.
But listen, there's no doubt that Atlanta comes away on the lead here if Scott Zeron wants it. The question is someone going to go with her? Whether it's Phaetosive, Manchego, I'm Pink too, is someone going to go and push her a little? And we haven't seen her very often from off the pace. I mean, she won, I think, her first start of the year from off the pace against older foes. But since then, all her good races have been on the lead.
I think the 5/8 mile track sets up really well for her and may not set up as well for others. I mean, you see Manchego hasn't gotten around this track that well. Even Phaetosive at times hasn't negotiated the 5/8 that well. And I don't think Plunge Blue Chip, as good as she is, he's also been, more like they just take it a little easy the first quarter. So in the first question, I would say, yes, there will be other horses leaving because they'll want to get spots behind Atlanta if they're available. I think that's certainly a worthwhile idea. And, Plunge Blue Chip may end up being first over, but she doesn't seem to mind first over all that much. But I do see Atlanta on the lead. And like I said, if the horse she recovered from the Philly Futurity 2 heats looking very, very solid last week. And if she's at the top of her game, she's as fast as anything out there.
Now, let me ask you a different question then. Do you think she's worth the price you're going to end up getting at post time? I don't know. Let's say it's 6-5. Do you think she's a 6-5 shot in this field?
Well, I don't think any horse is going to be 6-5 in this race. That's my opinion. I mean, there's just too many places to go and make wagers in this race, and certainly, the way the wagering has been at Pocono last week, I would wager any amount right now that the first punch when we open the wagering on Saturday will be fatosive with most of the money.
Mm-hmm. Well, that seems to be typical, with a big driver change, always gets all the early action, and then they kind of drift up to a, normal, level. The question is what the normal level is going to end up being. Is it going to stay low because this is such a big driver change, or is it going to, drift up to 3 or 4 to 1 where you can actually take a shot and bet the horse?
I think it'll be under 3 to 1. I mean, I think I believe she'll be the second choice, but she'll be very close second choice. I just think that we're all wise guys at some point in time, and nobody who's bet this game for any period of time would want to miss out on an opportunity like this driver change.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Obviously, 12 Breeders' Crown races on the card. Anything else stand out for you? A horse that you're, really keen in on? You're looking forward to playing?
Well, I'm playing. Listen, I'm looking forward to see what happens in the 2-year-old filly trot race. Woodside Charm and When Doves Cry. I mean, both of them went really, really impressive trips last week. And I've been a big fan of Woodside Charm since I first saw her. But the Simon Allard, Renee Allard coming alive at this point in time. I mean, that filly is, in the last month, she's gone from trotting in 52. You got to give them a lot of credit for just developing that filly. She's obviously got a lot of pedigree behind her, but they've done a great job of getting her here. And another one that just sticks out, Springsteen. I mean, Springsteen looked really, really solid last week. He draws inside. He's not a speed horse, but with the 3-hole and with any kind of cover, I mean, I just think that 3-year-old colt pace final is a wide open affair.
I completely agree. I think that's a wide open race, and Springsteen is a horse I was on last week, and I'm going to stay on this week. I mean, I think the price is right, and he's proven that when the race sets up his way, he's as fast as any horse in the race.
Absolutely.
Well, we got 12 Breeders' Crown races, as we said, 14 races on the card, 3 guaranteed pick 4s, jackpot pick 5 with a $20,000 carryover. It's a mandatory payout. All the action's live on DRF. Jay, thanks for joining us, and good luck on Breeders' Crown Night.
Same here.